All right, let's dive into something we all use every single second, but probably don't think about too much. The incredible, invisible network that powers Google Cloud. We're going to peel back the layers and see how your data zips across the entire planet in literally the blink of an eye. Ready? Let's get into it. You know, it's a simple thing we do a million times a day, right? You tap an app, and boom, everything you need is right there. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually going on behind that tap? It's a wild journey, and we're about to follow a single piece of data from start to finish. And what a journey it is. Here's the crazy part. Your data isn't just hopping on the regular public internet. Nope, it gets to ride on Google's own private, super fast highway of undersea fiber optic cables. That means it's faster, way more reliable, and a whole lot more secure. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly how this whole amazing system works. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the huge planet-wide view of Google's network. Then we'll zoom right into your private piece of the cloud. After that, we'll get into the weeds of how data actually speaks the same language, how we keep it all safe, and then, the best part, we'll put it all together and trace a single click all the way across the world and back. Okay, first up, let's start with the really, really big picture. Before we can even talk about the cloud, we have to understand the massive, physical stuff, the cables and data centers that it's all built on. Now, this is what's so cool about Google's setup. They actually own their own massive global network of fiber optic cables crisscrossing the ocean floor. This is a huge deal. It gives them a massive leg up on speed and security because your data isn't fighting for space on the public internet. So how do you even begin to organize something that massive? Well, it all starts with what they call regions. The easiest way to think of a region is just as a specific place on the map. You know, a major area like the US West Coast or Western Europe, where Google has built out its infrastructure. And inside each of those big regions, there are multiple separate zones. So if a region is like a city, then a zone is like a neighborhood. Having multiple zones is key for redundancy. If something weird happens in one neighborhood, say a power outage, your app can just keep on running in the next one without missing a beat. In each of these zones is basically its own fortress. We're talking a full-blown independent data center with its own power, its own cooling, its own networking, the whole shebang. So by building your application across multiple zones, you're making it super resilient to any single point of failure. Okay, so we've gone from this globe-spanning network all the way down to a single physical building. Now, let's step from the physical world into the virtual one, where you get to carve out your own private space. This is where we get to the virtual private cloud, or VPC. I love this analogy. Think of Google Cloud as this giant, bustling city. A VPC is like getting your own private, secure office building right in the middle of it. It's totally yours. You control the locks, you decide who gets in and out, and you set up all the rooms inside. Now, inside your virtual office building, every single computer, every device needs its own unique address, just like a house on a street, right? This is its IP address, and it's basically got two parts. One part is like the street name, that's the network, and the other part is the house number, that's the specific computer. And you've really got two main types of addresses. There's a public IP, which is like your home's mailing address. Anyone, anywhere in the world can find it and send something to it. But then you have a private IP. That's more like saying, meet me in conference room 3 inside your office. It only makes sense to people who are already inside the building. Your services use these private IPs to talk to each other safely, without ever being exposed to the wild west of the public internet. So, we have our buildings and we have the addresses, but how do the messages actually get sent? What are the rules of the road? What language do they speak? Well, that's where protocols come in. To make sure that, a server made by one company can talk to a laptop made by another, we have these standardized rulebooks or models. They're basically the blueprints for network communication. They break down the whole complex conversation into different layers, all the way from the physical wire up to the software you're actually using. Okay, so how does a conversation even start between two computers on the internet? It's actually kind of polite. They use what's called a three-way handshake. It's pretty simple. Your computer sends a message saying, "Hey, you there? I'd like to connect." That's a SYN packet. The server replies, "Yep, I'm here and I'm ready for you." That's the SYN/ACK. Finally, your computer says, "Awesome, got it." That's the ACK, and now they can start talking. When it comes to the conversation itself, there are two main styles. First, you've got TCP.
Think of TCP like sending a certified letter with tracking. It's all about reliability. It guarantees every single piece of data arrives, and it arrives in the correct order. On the other hand, you've got UDP. UDP is more like sending a postcard. It's super fast, you just write it and send it, but there's no guarantee it'll get there. That's why it's perfect for things like live video streaming or online gaming, where a little bit of data loss is okay, but speed is absolutely everything.
All right, we know how the data talks, but how do we control the conversation? How do we play bouncer at the door of our network and decide who's allowed in and who gets turned away? Let's talk security. Your first line of defense is always the firewall, and honestly, the easiest way to think about it is as a security guard standing at the front door of your network. This guard has a list, a set of rules, and if your traffic isn't on the list, you're not getting in. Simple as that. And these rules are not just a simple yes or no. Oh no. You can get incredibly specific. You can set the priority of rules, you can allow or deny traffic, decide which of your machines the rule applies to, filter based on where the traffic is coming from, and even specify which digital doors, or ports, are open. It gives you this amazing, fine-grained control over your security. And for when you need to bring in the heavy hitters, you've got services like Cloud Armor. Think of this as your network's own elite security detail, specifically designed to protect you from massive coordinated attacks, like a DDoS attack that try to overwhelm your application with traffic. Okay, we've looked at the giant global network, your own private virtual cloud, the languages they speak, and the security that protects it all. Now for the grand finale. Let's put it all together and follow one single request from your keyboard out into the world and back again. So you type a web address into your browser and hit enter. What actually happens in that split second? Well, first, your computer has to play detective and figure out the IP address for that website name. It's like looking up a name in a global phone book called DNS. Once it finds the address, it does that polite three-way handshake we talked about, establishes a secure encrypted connection, and only then does the website data start flowing back to your screen.
It's just incredible when you really think about it. The whole journey, from your fingers on the keyboard, zipping across the ocean floor in a fiber optic cable, navigating through these secure virtual tunnels, and landing right back on your screen. And it all happens in less time than it takes you to blink. This whole invisible dance is happening right now for billions of people every single second of every single day. It's the foundation of our entire digital world. So now that you know a little bit more about how it all works, the only question left is, what are you going to build on it?